let's turn our attention now to Darren Bunnett. Help me out here, because you were able to, in part, get people like Senator Hinch on board to have a conversation about tax and petroleum tax at the moment. Make this as simple for everyone on the Thursday before a long weekend. What's the issue, and why does Parliament have to get involved?
The petroleum rent resource tax was designed in the 80s under the Hawke government for exploration for oil. Nowadays, we're a much bigger exporter of LNG and gas products. The tax was not designed for that purpose. So if you explore, you can offset your costs as tax credits. Now, it came out today that the industry has roughly $240 billion in tax credits. And what that means is that once their production ramps up or prices improve, it still means that they're not going to be paying anything in petroleum rent resource tax. And we think, I work for an organisation called the Tax Justice Network, we think that a 10% Commonwealth royalty, which would bring that into line with other projects on the North West Shelf and onshore projects in Queensland, means that Australians will receive a fair benefit for their own natural resources. Now, I've spoken to all of the crossbench in the last couple of months. The Treasurer, to his great credit, has announced a review by Mr Callaghan, who's from Treasury, and we're all waiting for the release of that review before the budget. And certainly the crossbench senators are of the view that we need to see some action ahead of, as part of that budget this year.
Well, we should ask the Senator. I mean, obviously, the government grinds very slowly, but this seems to be a very large pot of money. But I'm imagining the industry will push back with all the things that the mining tax was about, which is, if you do this, then it gets passed on to consumers somehow.
Oh, they'll be pushing back. Look, I think it's a fair tax. It was, when it was brought in, I understand why it was done in the 80s, but now, we've reached a stage now when you're paying more tax on the pot of beer that you buy than these big companies are paying on their gas. Something's rotten in the state of Denmark, and it has to change. And I'm voting in favour of a 10% tax, yes.
What do you think, Stuart, is the consequence of this tax?
Well, the broader issue is the number of tax deductions that are available to big companies, and other ones, research and development. Microsoft, Apple, they're going to innovate and spend money on research and development, whether they get a tax deduction for it or not, because that's their business.
Correct.
But we give them massive tax deductions to effectively run what their business is about. So there's scope for a broader look, but certainly that rent resource tax is an area that it'll be an interesting test for the government, no question.
Now, two things I also want to ask you, Senator Hinch, about is one, Gerard Ridsdale has admitted to further crimes. It's about 11 more that are on top here. What does this now mean about the totality of his horror?